city of civilizations, the address of peace, brotherhood, and trust, Silivri. And its history that defies centuries, its culture distilled from centuries and extending to the present day, while reaching into the future with its nature that encompasses all the beauties of life. It virtually shouts, with the unique human stories in every corner. Because there is life in Silivri. And the stop of our journey, which we embarked on to document and pass on to future generations that life in Silivri exists in all its colors in every neighborhood, is this time Değirmenköy, which has hosted many civilizations throughout history, continues to preserve its historical artifacts, persistently maintain its traditions, and keep alive the old neighborly relations and solidarity. If you like, let's not prolong the talk any further and listen to the story of Değirmenköy from the mouths of its residents who say there is life in Değirmenköy.
In the old village, of course, during the Ottoman period, Greeks lived there, let's say until 1922. In 1922, of course, when the War of Independence was won, the Republic of Turkey was established, this time an exchange. Agreement was reached with Greece. In 1922, the Greeks here to Greece, of course, went while those who wanted to stay stayed.
As far as we heard from our fathers and grandfathers, before the population exchange, they were Greek people with whom they had neighborhood relations there. Our elders know these things.
And there were two-story wooden houses referred to as hane left by the Greeks. They were left by the Greeks when the population exchange began. They settled, the exchangees coming from Thessaloniki in this region, and friends. To be together, they settled in Değirmek.
We migrated from Thessaloniki in 1911. Like us, 99% of the village also migrated from nearby towns in the same way. It consists of nomadic families. They call it Menlikli among us, but even though my father's side is Menlikli, my grandmother's side is from Langaza. The majority of the village are also Langaza nomads.
In the past, Değirmenköy was inhabited by nomads. The nomads were here. That's why they are all from Thessaloniki. Immigrants, 90% are immigrants from Thessaloniki. Now, Don, this place is Rumelia, left over from the Greeks. The old Değirmenköy is actually something that doesn't even appear on our identity documents.
According to the legends in our old village, even during the time of the Greeks, while they were living here, in the area we call Valta, along the E5, the current E5 passes through that establishment. There were people known as the sons of Germayan living here. There is even a mosque site. The stones of the mosque site are still visible today in a man's field. The stone foundation existed as a mosque. They lived here. The sons of Germayan,
according to our elders, until the year 55, the majority was within the borders of Tekirdağ. Then, with an initiative under the name of a referendum, it was separated from Tekirdağ and included in Istanbul.
1953 remains as a germ. After 1953, the name Değirmenköy changes. While the name Değirmenköy changes, it is connected to Istanbul. It is connected to Silivri, Değirmenköy. Well, that name is also across from the old village, a windmill on the hill. Of course, it educates with the windmill. The people of that day, let's say the citizens, refer to it. The name Değirmenköy is taken from there.
The old name of Değirmen village is German village. Our German villages, above our old villages, are located When there was a landslide there, our village was moved here as a soil erosion control measure. Houses were built here by the state. Our village was moved here.
Yes, between the years 1960 to 65, I'm telling what we heard from our elders. There was a very large flood due to the rain disaster. 2 houses were destroyed.
They are not at the beginning or the middle, they are at both ends. There were slides, collapses, and cracks in the houses. Thank God, there was no loss of life. Our government intervened.
Democratic Party members are welcoming Suleiman Demirel by sacrificing an animal on the E5 highway. At that time, may our former Prime Minister rest in peace. Suleiman Demirel is a character with a very strong memory for names. He recognizes his party members even in the village. By addressing them by their names, he finds an opportunity to chat with them. At the moment the sacrifice was made, and the Democratic Party members of that time referred to Ömer Başaran, whom we called the chief, who ran for election several times and lost, knows Silivri very well. Uncle Ömer says, I am the chief of this village. He says, we have problems here.
They are settled here through the ministry's P4P channel. Initially, if I remember correctly, 148 are settled. Later, they are settled piece by piece. And the payment is given by the ministry. Money is only for the Build Your Own House campaign. So, it doesn't go to the contractor. It is given to you piece by piece. You build your house, you work yourself, and in that way you construct your home.
The Prime Minister also says, in our convoy, we have our Minister of Bayırdunluk and İskend. He gives instructions to him. At the same time, this area in our village is toured with friends from the Justice Party or the Democratic Party, and the button is pressed.
They provided the opportunity. In compulsory expropriation, they called it a parcel in place of yours and mine. By carrying out compulsory expropriation here for us, they gave it based on the time factor in terms of land. They gave the land under the conditions of that day. After giving the land, the state also gave 15 liras each. With this money, the old houses you see today on the side, the house is built with 15 liras a day.
A directive is given to the Senior Student Committee at Yıldız Technical University to conduct a study here, and perhaps a model for Turkey. A new village is being built, a new village plan is being constructed here.
The first section started below, from Fezis Pasha neighborhood. The land was provided, the state gave the allocation. An allocation of 15 million each was given to build the houses. It was moved here. Değirmenköy. It turned out well. Thank God we were saved from the congestion, mud, and swamp there. We established a nice settlement here. It turned out very, very well. We are satisfied indeed.
We had our church, there were schools. I'm trying to tell you according to what my mother told me, but there were more difficulties in the past. But when we came to this new village, different events happened.
We have a historical church. It's in a place where we studied as a school. Our school is also there. I say, this thing is 1860. I mean, there's a number at the entrance. 1860 is old. A church remaining from those times.
When our grandfathers arrived, the church was single story. Our grandfathers came, the grandfathers from the oldest blessed ones. Our grandfathers came here. At the age of 1650, our grandfathers were the first to arrive. At that time, it was a church. They made it 2-story. They built a school.
My father-in-law remembers the school time in that old church. He used to describe it very well. They experienced school time in the church. My father-in-law studied there.
I attended elementary school until the 4th grade at a church school.
From my peers or friends or contemporaries, let me say there were oceans there. It was already relatively known as the Rising Elementary School. That's what they used to say. Of course, there were oceans. There were oceans there. That's what they talk about. They say there were very beautiful days there, but now there aren't any.
We were also taking care of the stoves. The stoves. How everything was made of wood everywhere anyway. One day, somehow it happened. While the children us were teasing and fighting with each other, how did it happen? The stove tipped over. Things inside it started to burn. Well, the wood started to burn. The janitors and teachers arrived. We also went there from the taps. At that time, there was no water immediately available. Close to the tap, from the tap, we extinguished it with the water we brought, and it passed like that. Otherwise, if it hadn't been stopped in time, the whole building could have burned down. At that time,
There was a need for a second school. That is an opposite neighborhood. There was a lower neighborhood. A new school was built for us in the lower neighborhood, in the Armenlukla area. Then we moved from there to there and continued there as well.
I know from the time of the village headman, in past years people from neighboring countries would come there for a couple of hours under the guise of worship. They were visited by tourists, whom we referred to as qualified individuals. A short ceremony would be organized. In that manner, it had a cultural significance, but nowadays it seems to have lost its value. But if attention is given, of course, it can be revived. There's no reason it can't be.
still, years have passed. The Greeks who migrated from here, along with Ursel, come by 1 or 2 buses to visit the village. They search for their homes, of their fathers and grandfathers, also to the church. They come and take water there. From the lower fountain, it turns out there was a saint of the church back then. The saints of this church also, according to their own branches, according to their own religious knowledge, the saints were somewhat like specialist doctors. The saint in our Değirmenköy was believed to be good for eye diseases, so the Greeks coming from Greece bring water from there, just like how our Muslims go and bring a little water. They would also take water what's from the other fountain in the village and go like that.
Originally a church, later used for education, this structure supposedly has gold underneath. People said things were hidden and it was greatly degenerated. Very sad things happened. It strayed far from its true identity.
They built the school, may God bless them already. Treasure hunters also break and destroy. You know, they look for money. They look for treasure.
Plus, many treasure hunters came for this. Treasure hunters conducted a search for it. They started searching for gold. The shepherds put their hay where the gold searchers were. When they put their hay, of course, the church was plundered.
The historic church in Değirmenköy, defying the years, is resisting to remain standing today, with the hope of regaining its former glorious days. Although buildings can be plundered by malicious individuals, memories can always retain their place in minds. In Değirmenköy, especially, childhood memories, adorned with sincerity and tested by scarcity, provide opportunities for the residents to passionately love our charming neighborhood.
In our childhood, we had impossibilities. We used to play on slides, ride bicycles, and jump rope. There were no such things as cafes, the internet, computers, or phones.
What about our childhood? Just small things with family, friends, and neighbors. Back then, neighborly relations were very good. There wasn't much wealth back then. Whenever you needed something, you would go to your neighbor, and they would come to you. There wasn't such a strong coffee culture or anything like that. In those days, my late grandmother was around. She would take a lantern, and we would go to the neighbor's house to sit at night. Childhoods were better back then. Even if you went to play ball, you would form a neighborhood team. The neighborhood was nicer, more lively. There wasn't such abundance back then. Everyone had a piece of chocolate. Even if you bought it, you needed money to buy chocolate. Many times. You would go to the grocery store with eggs. That's how our youth and childhood passed.
This place was on its own. There was livestock and agriculture. So, not that day since our agriculture wasn't that much. We had our school period. We continued our lives by reinforcing our school period with the small and large livestock at our home.
What did we do in childhood? We used to play games from the old games. How does it go? What we call a steel rod. We have games, great joy. We also played the games that every child played in their time.
We don't have a playground. For that day, with friends, stick and hoop game, spinning top game, marble game.
A well is dug and in the middle there's a pit with a stick. With that, there is a rod. You throw it with that rod. Opposite, it becomes permissible. There are friends. They try to catch it. For example, you would play it like a little father. Our games were like this a long time ago. We used to play marbles.
I remember very well from my childhood in the Değirmenköy Square. 15-20 trucks would go to Istanbul, Taşlıtar, Osmaniye, and those areas with tomatoes. Tomatoes were produced and sold in significant quantities.
The reason for the development of the village was, after moving here from the old village, tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers. We were 4 siblings over time. 4 siblings and parents. We were planting at least 15-20 acres of tomatoes. We were planting 10 acres of cucumbers. Alongside this, lettuce grows, you plant parsley, you plant radish, there are peppers, leeks, everything is there. In other words, we did all of these and very often went to markets, sold them.
Here in Değirmenköy, the development is based on tomatoes, onions, wheat, and watermelon. In those years, we could spend, we would take them to the markets in Istanbul. Our tomatoes, melons, watermelons, and onions. The essence of tomatoes, that is the essence of the development of the new Değirmenköy. That is...
At night, 3 or 4 trucks, everyone would make 3 trips from here to Istanbul. Can you imagine the abundance of tomatoes? And back then, there weren't such markets everywhere. For example, you would go to the Eyüp market. You would go to the Eyüp market on Friday, to the upper side of the Eyüp market. We would start at 10 o'clock. We would load the tomatoes collected the day before onto the vehicles. We would go to the trucks, unload them. We would come back, load again, and go again towards morning. Some would have onions, some spinach, some tomatoes. In other words, Değirmenköy village is a hard-working village. And by working, 80% of the preservation of the land here today is due to this.
The main livelihood of our village is the mill, farming, wheat, barley, sunflower, but most importantly, our tomatoes. For years, the 40th. This year, our tomato festival was held. We are assertive about our tomatoes. We have very high quality organic tomatoes.
Together with my late father, we were among the first tomato growers in the village. There were gardeners who planted tomatoes, and then there were those like us. There were those who only planted tomatoes like us. Even from my primary school years until I graduated from university without a break, I came here, planted tomatoes, harvested tomatoes, and sold them at the markets. Under the conditions of those days, we had approximately around 15,000 tons of produce. We had tomato production in the summer, only field tomatoes, table tomatoes.
The product has a unique taste characteristic in Değirmenköy. It originates from the soil, the air, and the water. It also carries the feature of being famous.
It comes to us from the field owners. Then the 3 of us friends wash them. If there are any wormy or rotten ones, we sort them out, just like you saw earlier. Then we pass them through our machine. When we pass them through the machine, we pour them into sacks. What we pour into the sacks becomes raw paste. It is strained, hung, and dried. That raw paste is added to dishes. At the same time, we also have our pots, our big ones. We put them on the stove and boil them there. That becomes paste for meals and breakfast.
They bring it to me and I put it in. We clean thoroughly in 3 basins.
then put it in the machine, and from the machine, we pour it into bags, buckets, and pans, boil it, and give it to my Silivri ladies in jars.
So at the time, tomatoes were a farmer's product with very enjoyable profits. And with its prominence in Istanbul, and of the time with the awareness created by the Republican People's Party Mayor Mümin Tulu through the festival, it became a renowned, famous product. But unfortunately, the conditions in Turkey are at the point of producing this product in Değirmenköy are slowing down its pace day by day.
Although the production speed of tomatoes today is not as high as it was in the past, their reputation continues to grow with each passing day. The Tomato Festival, which started during the Belde municipality period, is now in its 40th year. It has left behind its 40th year. Of course, when it comes to Belde municipality, just like in many of our other towns, the people of Değirmenköy can't help but get involved. Let's once again listen together to those years of the Belde municipality, fondly remembered from their own words.
For our Değirmenköy, or the closure of the municipality, is very significant. It was a major handicap. In other words, a very wrong move, a wrong attitude. They should not have been closed. At the very least, there should have been local governance, on-site management. It would have been better if our municipalities had not been closed, and we could have carried out most of our work here. On the edge, we might not go. At least some departments could have stayed here. We had mentioned these things back then too, but at that time, there was nothing that could be done. When something happened, it was inevitably closed. But I find it wrong.
I am a politician who has taken a stance on this issue. In 2004, I was the district chairman. I was the district chairman of our party in Değirmenköy. In 2008, this law was enacted. In 2008, we woke up one morning and they said, the municipality is now closed. This place is a neighborhood. I mean, people have animals in front of their houses. You know, they are engaged in agriculture. There are roosters, there are chickens. They said that today your site has assumed the same status as the Nispetay neighborhood in Atayla. Of course, it wasn't very clear to us at that moment, but being the district chairman, you know, local administration, its governance on site, in the village. I remember all of that well. Before the year 2009, we organized a very large-scale meeting with all the political figures who were candidates for our party, including Selami Değirmenci, Yılmaz Kandemir, Özcan Işıklar, and Yavuz Çengel. We had said that this law is not a correct law. Local administration is governance on site. The consequences of this will be severe for the villagers.
The municipal years were very, very good. We were satisfied with the municipality, with its presence. The citizens were satisfied, and we were satisfied too. That's how it developed anyway. Değirmenköy developed with presence of municipality.
As the people of Değirmenköy, as administrators, we actually want to govern ourselves. Let the Değirmenköy municipality be reopened, no matter which political party wins. But let it be governed here by us.
Actually, we are one of the oldest municipalities. We are a municipality established in 1963.
Our first Değirmenköy mayor, the late Mr. Hakkı Bilgiç. Osam, the late Abdullah Agün. Later, Mümin Tulu, Osman Topaç, our esteemed mayors have served. The 65-year-old Değirmenköy municipality, according to the law, has now become a neighborhood of Silivri.
Was it good? It was bad. I mean, both MHP supporters, AK party supporters and CHP supporters would agree that it would have been better if these town municipalities had remained open. They could have experienced their own political competition themselves. They could have addressed their own issues much more quickly and easily within themselves.
So back then, this was quite a village, but actually a municipality, yet still a village. I mean, everyone is a farmer. Their livelihood is entirely based on farming. Their wealth, status, and resources are just enough to make ends meet. The municipality now has no resources, no money, no assets, no income. And during that time, what did I do here? So the villages, in fact, I did something like this. There was something called biogas. I read about it and said, hey, AGAS livestock farmers, come here. I said, now what should we call biogas here?
Of course, you wouldn't know our town as it was back then. The situation today. Mumint Ulu. Değirmenköy was muddy. Many places were muddy back then. Even the main street was gravel. It was a haphazard kind of gravel like this. It was muddy. Mumint Ulu saved it from the mud and mire. Değirmenköy. He developed such a social life that we were satisfied.
But what happened? Here, by channeling the resources of a rising opportunity, we paved all our roads with asphalt. In today's conditions, we laid 30,000 tons on highways and 5,000 tons on roads, making a total of 35,000 tons of asphalt, paving the entire village and saving it from mud. Later, from the Iller Bank and the municipality's revenues, they acquired an excavator. It became a self-sufficient municipality.
Who moved our stone village? May God bless them, all of them. No problem. But the faithful president paved all the roads of our village. It's endless to count. If we were to list our services in a permitted place, I think we might need to talk for hours.
During my 2 terms here, I organized land distribution. During the Friendly period, we distributed approximately 500 plots. We distributed them for 3,000 lira at that time at the auction of the plots. In the second term, we again distributed 500 to 1,000 plots. That was like 5,000 lira with a 100 lira payment. And now, all those who own plots have become homeowners. They pray and thank me.
While serving as vice president and as a member of the assembly, together with Mubin Tulu and his team in Değirmenköy, to undertake a very, very challenging task, we implemented the 18 Dünya'ya application, residential and industrial.
Also in the industry, why did we establish the industry? We said let it be planned. In other words, unlike Europe, where a village is in one style, we thought industry should develop in a planned manner elsewhere. I had planned the industry on 2,500 acres. Currently, there are approximately 40 factories in this industrial area, and all the young people of the village have reached a point where they work in the factories. They have reached the point of retirement. In the early years, there was a mindset that women wouldn't work in factories, but they got used to it. Husbands and wives work in the factory. They come home, and if there's work at home, they do it. Additionally, those who own goods in the industrial area became the wealthiest in the village. At that time, I faced a lot of criticism while making that plan.
When our important president gathered our assembly, he said, "Friends, we receive migration, like Uzun Kopru, like Kırklareli, like the villages of Tekirdağ." He said, we need to bring our young people together for this, to Değirmenköy, and open the palace to development. Of course, we received a lot of backlash. From the public, I couldn't explain it to myself. Later, in the same years, again, as a protected area for development, we offered the citizens 500,000 TL with a down payment of 3,000. At that time, it cost 3,100 lira. And because of these efforts, Aslan, Mehmet, Ayşe and Fatma couldn't understand us. We lost the election in 2004.
The town municipality needs a plan. Industry has been established, residential zoning has been opened, but along with this, due to a lack of proper information, so you're turning our field into a plot. What are you doing when making it a plot? You take 3 acres out of 10 acres? How can you take my property? These issues, Matt, were very much on the agenda in Değirmenköy.
Of course, in politics, while engaging in politics or being on duty in your days, everything is good. Everyone says hello to you. Everyone embraces you. But after politics is over, after the presidency is over, what matters is that they love and respect you. I have no complaints about that. Thank goodness. I put my hand behind my back then anyway. Now I still walk around the village. I greet everyone. We haven't been in office for 20 years, but whether it's the young or the old, they still show respect and love by calling me president. This is enough for us.
Of course, Osman Topaç won the election after us again. Mr. Osman also built municipal housing. He provided buildings to the citizens, to those with low income. Local administration is always best when it is entirely in its own hands. Hopefully, in the coming years, Değirmenköy will be governed by our own brothers and children. They will provide services.
Will the villagers of the mill reunite with the town municipalities they long for? We will see in time, of course. However, it is clear that they have no intention of abandoning the traditions that they fondly remember. Today, they still maintain their unity and togetherness during weddings, hidreles, and holidays, sharing the joy with friends and continuing to hold their weddings accompanied by old customs.
It would last for 3 days and 3 nights. Cauldrons would boil. If it started on Friday, by Sunday the groom would be exhausted from the wedding preparations.
The first night, the meal would start and it would continue on the second night. The third day, of course, is the wedding.
There would be more weddings at the end of the harvest. In other words, the time when the villagers had money was the end of the harvest. Depending on the size of the village, there would be one wedding on the weekend, at most 2.
It would start on Friday evening. Soup in cauldrons, dried beans, various dishes. Men, neighbors, relatives would make bread. They would make desserts and bring them.
On Saturday, generally the tradition we call saçılık was fulfilled. In that period, what we called saçılık was more about helping the wedding host. For the purpose of cooperation, it was mostly bread. Pita, sweets, was in trouble. This was done by relatives, neighbors, and family members. But for those attending the wedding, it was to meet their eating and drinking needs. It was about helping and providing for them.
On the first day, contributions are collected, probably to help out the wedding host. There would be sweets, there would be zerdi, there would be pastries, there would be those who make pied. Even those who couldn't make those would give a tin or half a tin of wheat, barley, whatever it was. Contributions would be collected on the first day.
With drums. You will give sweets. We were going to your house. Come on. Dambara, dambara, dambara. You go with a tractor trailer or a regular car. For example, a wedding from your house there. The other will give wheat with a tin. The other, we would take it with a tin and do something. It wasn't like this in the past. Now everyone brings the sweets they make to the wedding. Those who want to make it, bring it. Wheat, barley, oats, all of these have remained.
In the past, there used to be something, on Saturday evenings, there was something. They used to do grandmother and grandpa. 2 women would be put in the middle, the girl at the wedding house. They would act as grandma and grandpa and playfully interact with each other, making people laugh. They would do comedy.
Also on that day, the bride's dowry would be taken by the bride. They would go with drums and zurnas, and the dowry would be taken. It would be taken by car with a ceremony. And from there, to the bride's side and the girl's side, gifts would be given. Anyway,
It is prepared. Then, first, horse-drawn, the carriages are covered with a tent so that the bride is not seen. Are prepared, and they go to the bride's house, of course, along with the procession from the bride's house. There, for half an hour or an hour, they bring out the same bride. They take her.
the dowry taken for this girl is brought to the groom's side, and on Saturday, It is displayed in the bride's room by relatives at their house for exhibition. It is exhibited. Whatever works have been done are planned there, displayed, and everyone comes to see if the girl is skillful or not, what kind of dowry she has. They would come and look. They would come and look as if attending an exhibition.
There were grain sellers, there was the scholarly class, there were the hyacinths. We organized our engagements like this. For example, even my engagement was done in a circle like this. It wasn't like that back then.
We also held my own wedding in that way. A woman we referred to as Darisi would also grace weddings on that day. In this way, she was providing something nice. It was a contribution, like a type of entertainment.
There were hawkers, you probably know. They used to shout there. I got a small one from Camille Abi, a small one from whoever. They would always shout like that. In the past, she would get angry, tease, and gather like that.
Honestly, my mother-in-law used to describe the wedding like this, and she still does. As I said, it lasted 3 days and 3 nights with meals served. Convoys were made with horses. The horses were decorated. The horse carriages were decorated. So they sewed dresses at home instead of a wedding dress. Of course, there weren't any wedding dresses like the ones we have today. They used to sew dresses from fabric with sequins. That's how she still describes it.
If the jokes during the groom's shave are taken seriously, the barber is also taken with a ceremony. They come with drums and zurnas, and the barber is taken. He is brought with drums and zurnas. Also something that is indispensable, the Turkish flag attached to the sofa. Either it's at the local office or it's also at the barber's.
When we held weddings, we would raise the Turkish flag. At the time, we raised the Turkish flag. If there were 2 weddings at the same time, we wouldn't even pass by the same road to avoid the flags meeting. That flag would go that way, this flag would go this way.
As you approach the groom's side, the groom hears you from there, and he also has his best man with him. He also has a shotgun with him. He fires the shotgun twice with a bang-bang. He says, "I'm ready, I'm waiting."
From outside, if the groom is marrying a girl from Değirmenköy, are young men going to the military, they collect a fee from them under the money. Today, they take 10 lira or 15 lira, and they also have a military send-off party for themselves. Such a tradition continues. Sometimes there are minor disturbances, grievances occur. But as elders, we step in, we intervene, and we resolve these issues.
What does Toprak Basta mean? Toprak Basta means a girl from our village is taken by a family, not from our village. Who does the welcoming here? The young men who are the first to go to the military from the village do it. So, what kind of exchange happens here? Well, if the young men want to drink, they express their requests for alcohol. Chicken was famous. Let's cook 3 or 5 chickens. These were famous. These are still experienced in our village.
Our Hıdrellez celebration. Of course, in the past, they would set up swings on the trees. There would be Hıdrellez celebrations. Girls would swing or folk songs would be recited. Whether it was Hıdrellez or festivals, their traditions, was something special.
For some reason, I don't know in which tradition on Hıdrellez. When we were children, we used to go. Now it's not there. Where's the time? We used to pick nettles along the streams everywhere. When we were children, we used to pick nettles. I guess on Hıdrellez night, will a snake enter the house with the nettles? We would say that if we did something bad, it would enter, and we would say, we would prepare the nettles for the windows, doors, and entrances of the house from the night before and place them. All our hands would burn from the nettles.
Of course, at least back then at the end of the village now, where the water tank is, young girls would go there. They would put up a swing there. Young girls would gather there. There is also a place down at Taylansete where we used to go. They would gather there. The girls, they would swing on the swing. Of course, we boys would pass by and recite rhymes, listening to them. What was it? They would put a piece of paper inside the test. It would be like a rhyme seed or something like that.
And the young people there either sway in their places or they line up opposite each other. The girls link arms. In lines, they both sing songs and playfully tease each other. They come in lines, again linking arms, singing like a kind of folk dance. They leave singing as they go. They also, in their places, wherever the young people they gather, where they look. And it would be like a festivity where they see their sweethearts. They say, in other words, if they did it, it would definitely happen. These festivities would take place.